Welcome to the third year of CAMA's Agri-Food webinar series. It's great to be back for our 2024 season. We are talking about what's next for Agri-Food for sales and marketing within AI. This series continues to be an example of living our involved mandate of representing Canada's entire food system, all the way from farm to fork. As many of you know, CAMA is made up of provincial chapters that work hard to provide opportunity for members to connect with other agri-food marketers right across the country on various topics and to grow their skills and their passion for marketing and communications. By being a CAMA member, you can reap these benefits. Next up in the series is on February 15th is Curtis Granger. Curtis is the Director of Lending Products and Sustainability Programs with FCC. His topic is progress over perfection, something that many of us can probably benefit from, and specifically on the very important topic of sustainability. A few weeks later, on March 14th, is our third in the webinar series with the popular Trends in Agri-Marketing 5.0, Ag Deserves Better, with featuring David Lazarenko of ThinkShift. As the title would suggest, we've had the benefit of hearing from David for the last 4 years, and he is always pushing the industry to do better. And we really look forward to his thought insights into latest trends for our industry. And our final webinar takes place on April 18th with Sean Haney and Justin Funk with Real Agri Studies as they discuss various approaches to and uses of marketing research and how it can benefit a company go-to-market initiatives, which is super exciting when we can apply research to our execution. So very much looking forward to that session. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Follow us on X and LinkedIn, and you can see what's happening across the country within our industry. So please join our conversations. We'd like to thank our webinar series sponsors, CAVIT, which is the nonprofit organization that's raising funds to send Aggies to post-secondary school, and Top Crop Manager, a leader in agriculture media. Their participation not only supports our webinar series, but also CAMA as a whole in helping to implement and expand our offerings to you, our members. We'd also like to acknowledge and recognize our industry partners who have joined the CAMA National Sustaining Partner Program. These partners are committed to our ongoing focus of ensuring CAMA continues to be a dynamic, credible, and relevant organization for Canada's agri-food marketers and communicators. Our four committed partners on screen, as you can see, are AdFarm, Bayer, McCann, and Real Agriculture. And thank you to these companies for their ongoing financial support. I'll ask Megan now at this time to turn her camera and unmute herself. And just finally, a few housekeeping items from me. Your questions, please type them into the Q&A box in the control panel. We're going to be hearing a lot of interesting things from Doug today. And so really looking forward to your questions. So please get those ready, type them in as we go, and we'll address those at the end of Doug's presentation. The webinar will be recorded with the link sent out to all of you within 24 hours of the webinar for your viewing pleasure and listening to some of the things that Doug's going to be telling us about today. We'll also be sending you all a follow-up survey. Please fill in the survey for us. It will only take you a couple minutes. This is to gather your inputs on the webinar today and to obtain feedback and suggestions for future events as well. I'm now going to turn it over to my co-host, CAMA Ontario Chapter President, Megan Wright with Grober Nutrition to introduce today's speaker. Megan.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you everyone who is taking the time to join our webinar today. It's great to see everyone on. So as Robert said, I'm Megan Wright with Grober Nutrition, and I've been involved with CAMA since my time on the University of Guelph CAMA student chapter team, and I'm pleased to now serve as president of the Ontario chapter. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. Doug Foley is president of Giant Goat and a visionary who has consistently pioneered the integration of AI in the sales domain, especially tailored for the agri-food sector. His insights have transformed businesses, leading them to new heights of efficiency and profitability. We're pleased to have Doug share his insights on cultivating efficient sales in agri-food with advanced intelligence. Please join me in welcoming Doug.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was probably one of the nicest opening things I've had to a webinar yet. Normally, they just throw me the mic and they say run with it. So thank you very much. Thank you to CAMA for having us and give us the opportunity to share some of the experiences, some of the learnings we've had with AI. I know that this is front and foremost for most companies trying to understand how do we dive in and take it a little bit further than just playing with some prompts. I am more than happy at the end if you want to see some prompts. I have kind of some pre-built ones set up for you. We do have a QR code you'll see throughout the presentation. That'll give you access to the entire prompt library we're going to show you. So if you want to take some of our learnings and take a jump start, we'll give them to you. I also have a longer recording of some of the elements we're going to go through today. So please just sit back, enjoy, take advantage of the recording, and ask as many questions as you can. Without further ado, let's dive in. For most people, they think AI is kind of this new shiny thing, but ironically, it's really been around for quite some time. And I'm not sure if any of you are Jeopardy fans, given that our dear old Alex Trebek is also a Canadian. The first big public showcasing of AI was IBM's Watson back in February 16th of 2011, which is now 13 years ago, almost to the day, where we saw the first showcase of how AI could integrate with both people from a question and answers type standpoint. And AI in its simplest form is a learning model that combines language processing and machine learning. And one of the things we wanted to do today is show you how to leverage that to where it's advanced today to where it's really accessible. And as most things marketers do, anytime we get our hands on it, we tend to ruin things and see if we can break them. So we're going to show you what we've broken today. Now, to put it in perspective, this is probably one of my favorite charts. And for those of you who are active marketers, Gartner is an incredible resource for understanding technology, the trends that are going on. They have a ton of these. This is called the hype cycle. And the hype cycle is broken into 5 key areas. So the innovation trigger, meaning when did something happen? The peak of inflated expectations, the trough of delusionment, the slope of enlightenment, when it kind of levels back off, and the plateau of productivity. And when I look at this chart, I often feel like as a marketer, this is what almost every week looks like for me. You get super excited, and then midweek you're exhausted, and then you're just looking for the weekend. So I can relate to this on multiple levels. But from an AI perspective, one of the things you'll note if you look into the middle, right above the peak of inflated expectations, we see generative AI right at the top. Now, this is the thing where most people are interacting with it right now, is creating things where it can create images or it can create different types of copy. We are at that point now where we are at the peak of inflated expectations. It's when it has the most attention, the most interest, and it's why we're probably talking today. Some of the things that you'll see coming up behind it are things like the simulation. So video AI, data analysis, how it's going to automate decision-making, and we'll show some of that today as well. But I wanted you to understand that it's not necessarily that it's brand new. It has been a while. It's just now really accessible. And part of what we're going to do today is show you how to take advantage of what's available to you. Now, most of you are probably most familiar with ChatGPT. There's a number of platforms that are available. And right now, one of the biggest frustrations we see from the client side is a lot of people are lumping in things like marketing automation, and they're assuming that's AI because it's automating a task. They feel like a robot's doing it. For some, AI might be the death of the human race. It depends who you ask. But for the purpose of today's conversation, we want to walk through an understanding of AI in this fashion. Number one, you have to understand how to find the right problem and match the right tool. You need to do it in the right order, at the right time, and with the right tools for what you're trying to accomplish. There is no shortage of third-party apps available to you that can do things like video editing, image editing, automated chatbots, you name it. But one of the things that we tell our clients is it's really important for you to understand the challenges that you're trying to solve and how to align that and build the right use cases. And for the purpose of today, I really want to focus on AI for ag marketers. And that challenge is creating a steady flow of fresh content that resonates with the target audience and creating compelling, effective ad campaigns and helping bridge the gap between sales and marketing. One of the biggest challenges I see across ag is they're never going to see a point where AI can take over completely. because you still have to sell across the farm gate and figure out how to have sales conversations. So a lot of what you'll see today when it comes to content generation or processing data, it's all about figuring out how can we enable conversations and create more compelling and contextually proper content. So in order to do that, we have to start with a thorough understanding of how people buy. And there is a very specific science behind the sequencing of how people buy. Now, some of you may have seen some of this when we did the presentation in Guelph, but it really comes down to the function behind the brain. I'm just going to switch gears and hop over to the iPad real quick. There's really three ways that we can compete for attention. And that really is the game we're after. It's paid, owned, and earned. Now, the way the brain functions and looks after these is it really is in three phases. We have our awareness phase. And for you marketers out there, most of this is not going to be new. The consideration and decision or deal. Now, at each one of these phases, our brain has three core interactions. And it's important to understand these because in order to program AI to effectively function, you need to understand the sequence of decision making. So in the awareness phase, this is where the root brain kicks in. This is our flight or fight mechanism. This is where the type of content is going to be the things that either interrupt a pattern or is something that just is different on a social media platform. But this is the piece where we get their attention. When we move down to the consideration phase, this is where our limbic system kicks in. This is the emotional center of our brain. This is where having really compelling content or really effective image matters, or telling a really effective story. The last phase where the decision or deals kicks in, this is your neocortex. This is the logic center of your brain. This is where we make the decisions to rationalize. Is this a good purchase? Is this a smart business decision? Now, the interesting piece of all of this, I can't pay somebody and influence their decision. No matter how good the media is, at the end of the day, when our logic kicks in, it can influence it. And this is where we start to build what we would consider a marketing funnel. The reason it's important to understand this from the perspective of AI is there are different copywriting frameworks you're going to use when you're building these out. And more often than not, campaigns fail because I'm using something that's more data-driven or numbers or stats up here. The challenge is if that's my first interaction, my root brain's going to look at this and say, you know what, I don't know what this is. I don't know how it relates to me. And it will kick off the freeze response. Remember, the root brain's responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. So if we don't have the sequencing of our campaigns in order, they tend to fall flat. And when you use AI, part of building the campaigns or creating relevant content is specifying where we're at in the funnel, what type of copy to use, and then how do we apply different frameworks. Now, the interesting thing here, when we get to the bottom of the funnel, one of the most important things to realize, and this is especially true in agriculture, is most of what we see here when it comes to business is built on two things. And that's loyalty and referrals. These are the two pieces of the puzzle when we start to build campaigns that this data layer that we see down here is one of the most effective inputs at putting into AI to train it to understand who are my best customers. What are the reasons they're buying from me? What are the campaigns or things that they converted on? And when I start here and I reverse engineer that success, it's a lot easier to rebuild a retargeting campaign or a type of referral campaign, or even asking for reviews that end up driving traffic. So without understanding the structure at mass, it's very difficult to train AI to function and create compelling content where you're just getting kind of that vanilla things. But when you do this and you input data and you set the right context, you're in a much better standpoint. Any questions on that? Good so far? Let me just take a quick peek. Awesome. Now this funnel, this is a much prettier version than my chicken scratch. So when you get this presentation afterwards, you can use this. If you download that, on the QR code, you will see a much more in-depth version of that. But just in the interest of time, I wanted to make sure we leave time to go deeper into AI. You have that there as well as the longer video there. When it comes to understanding the best pieces of AI, it's really important to understand how important the creative process is and understanding exactly who your customer is. All AI is going to do is amplify the creative process. So that's why we lead with understanding the sequencing of the customer journey and then layering in those other components. The three main steps that we have gone through in order to make sure we're creating effective content is number one, understanding prompt engineering and how to do it. Number two, something called command stacking. And number three, workflow automation. Now, we won't have time to go into all three of these in depth. So we're going to build off the first one, which is most important, is prompt engineering, followed by command stacking. I prepared some live examples so we can go play with that. You can see that work within ChatGPT. And then we'll briefly go over some of the workflow automation tools we have. But that in itself is a really big emerging field and takes some time to go into the technical components of what that is. So from prompt engineering perspective, those of you, if you're very new to AI, a prompt is the instruction that you give AI to give a specific output. So for example, describe the benefits of using X for soybean crops, and that will generate content for you. But the challenge we have seen, the more brief or the more simplistic your prompts, the more vanilla or the more plain your output's going to be. What we suggest and what we do for our clients, and I would take a screenshot of this, you need to brief ChatGPT so it understands the outcome or it understands what you're looking for to do. And the more specific you are with your ask and the more information it has, the better the outcomes come. And remember, I told you, if we're trying to model for sales, the biggest thing is to understand, tell them who your ideal customers are, tell them the goals, tell them the steps in your journey. And one of the interesting things is when you use this briefing prompt, it's almost like working with an agency where they sit down and do a discovery session with you, and it will produce a very clear, very distinct outcome. And the more time you take to answer those questions, the better and better that output comes because it's a learning model. So here's a live example. I went through that. Now, I'll be honest, I did have ChatGPT help me out. They did fill in the answers for me. But these are some of the questions that they asked. These are the quality of the answers that we put in for them. And it gave us the opportunity to now build whatever we need to in the future. So no matter what I'm doing, it understands my larger goal. It understands it's acting as a digital strategist. So I can do anything from ask it to write emails for me, help develop social content, you name it, but it's only because I set the context at the beginning. And the briefing prompt is probably one of the easiest and best ways to make sure you're set up for success. Here's some things you can do to change it. This list continues to grow as ChatGPT has integrated more and more elements across the OpenAI platform. You will see things like better image output. They've directly integrated DALL-E 3. So you can even integrate things like logos now, image assets, you name it. I personally still find Midjourney, which is another tool, more effective at creating images. But you'll continue to see this evolve. However, the briefing prompt is kind of your silver bullet to get the most out of it. The interesting thing is it's not just about content. You may say you're acting as a data analyst trying to figure out how to optimize ad campaigns in Facebook, and you can literally upload past campaign data. We've done this a number of times where we put in Google and Facebook campaign data and said, hey, figure out which has our best conversion path, how we need to adjust the balance of spend. And it's remarkable at how accurate it is. I will tell you, it is still a learning environment. So you still need to validate anything it puts out. You still need to be very careful for copyright reasons. However, it's a great tool to move the things in your typical marketing process much faster. The second piece, and honestly, this is where I have the most fun because you can really push the platform to get the most out of it, is something called command stacking. And what command stacking allows you to do is once you've done the briefing prompt and you have the specific task. So for example, you may ask, create an email campaign. You can continue to build on the tasks by asking additional commands to get further outputs. So for example, one of the things I'd asked is please create a list of content ideas for a winter campaign targeting farms that has a mix of education, improperly spelled entertainment, and helpful information, possibly including events farmers may want to attend. So the output was a long list, and I will show you that in a minute, of the different types of things it produced. Now, let me just switch just so you can take a look at the actual outcome from chat here. So you can see the briefing prompt, what I put in, all the questions, and now we move into the table. So if you see here, there's a pretty large depth of all the different opportunities, different types of content ideas that we can put on different platforms, and it even shows the platform on the far right. Now you can take this a step further and push this and say, hey, also give me the dates or times of year. If you've inputted a customer journey, it can help map different things out for you. So once we move beyond that, now this is where command stacking comes in. So I said, please help me refine. And I picked a specific idea to include steps, scripts, images. So this here, as you can see on the screen, one thing I will tell you, and you'll notice here, let's refine quote unquote winter on a farm. It's always a good idea to cut and paste and be specific with the idea that you're mentioning, so it knows to go capture all the details around it. Just like working with employees and team members, the more specific you are, the better the outcome. So what it then produces is basically the entire shot list. And then again, this is something, any of you that are going to use this regularly, highly encourage you to put this bonus prompt in there. You can save specific presets that make it easier to produce social content. So you can say for any Instagram post, please make sure you put our hashtag and these 4 hashtags. For any X or Twitter post, if you still call it Twitter, please make sure you put in these hashtags. And it'll remember that. Same thing with email signatures. Hey, please make sure you put this signature, this byline, and this link. You can have it save those so that anytime it creates an Instagram, an X post, an email, it will automatically add those back in. Because again, it's a machine learning program for it. So if you tell it to do something, it will always do that until you tell it not to. So I'll just switch back. Here's an example of what came out of it, and I'll switch back so you can see it in ChatGPT. But here is the entire production. So from the execution plan down to the exact overview of what we want the video to look like, it's going to continue to allow us to build on that platform. Let me just flip back so you can kind of see the production here. So this is the entire content for all of the episodes. So it gave us 7 episodes and a finale and the scripts. And then when we talk about additional elements, it tells us to get B-roll, how to do Q&A sessions. Now here's where it starts to get interesting. I'm going to ask it to execute episode number 1. So again, remember when I said be specific, we copy and pasted introduction so it knows it's episode 1. Now it goes into how to do the key scenes, how to write the script, the pre-production, and then gives me the social media captions I'm going to do it. And just a little bonus, this is something we had programmed into our instance ChatGPT. It gives you tips for clients. So if you're working with clients, or if you're doing it yourself, here's some things if you're going to shoot it on an iPad. Then we said, hey, can you push this onto social? And it creates the social post right there. So that is what command stacking enables us to do. It allows us to push a little deeper into the platform. And because we set that context in the beginning, we now have an opportunity to go much, much deeper and just constantly create content again and again. I could now, even with everything else, and I'll show this example once we wrap up the presentation, I can come back up and say, hey, now help me do episode 3. We could also use this to take the transcript and break down components of it and produce the different social clips for other platforms. Okay. This is the next piece, and this is something that you're going to see a much bigger evolution. Other platforms are starting to integrate workflow automation into this. And what workflow automation is, it's an extension of ChatGPT. So you can either integrate it as a chatbot, or you may have it process data, but there are things that are called either recipes or workflows. This is an example of one for LinkedIn. So in the initial setup, this is done in a tool called Make. And what Make will allow you to do is it will pick up your tone, it will rotate topics, and then it will integrate with ChatGPT to produce LinkedIn posts. Now, I have experimented with this. Content's not as good as what I would do in video, but these are things that will continue to evolve more and more. Even watching what's going on in the United States with the election, you're seeing more and more deep fake type content, but it's because of things like this. These recipes, and we're going to go through a few of our favorites, they are pre-built workflows that serve as blueprints. So if you're looking to do rapid content generation, or if you have a podcast or some type of content series you do regularly, this allows you to extend what might be a large piece of content and break it up into 30 or 40 different social posts that you can spread throughout all of your social channels. So this one here, for example, Airtable is a tool that allows you to organize data. So you may have a bunch of content ideas that sit there that can go into make.com, and it can automatically create both the image and the copy and push it to Instagram, both for photo and video, and automate the social production. One of the other pieces is leveraging AI to process data. So figuring out how can we understand who our competitors. This is really effective for sales and marketing teams to work together. As I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of work processing campaign data, understanding competitive research through this tool, and it just helps accelerate that workflow. Here's an example from competitor research that AI will automate. You could have a list full of your competitors. It will go into their Instagram business, and you can change these too. If you have other sources of business, but then that output will help put them into Google Sheets and update all those details. It will update the fields. It will help you understand, hey, here's what they're doing on social. Here are trending posts of theirs. Just check and see if there's any questions so far. Perfect. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that was deeply understood before I go into ChatGPT and do some live Q&A and do some playing around the platform, these are the kind of the 4 rules that I would say will make you the most successful. Number 1, set the context. Use that briefing prompt to explain to ChatGPT who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, and what the outcomes you're looking for are. Number 2, master inputs. Remember that it is a conversational tool. The goal for ChatGPT is to allow you to interact, to have conversations just like you would with members of your team. The better that quality of conversation, the better the output. If you just throw it and say, hey, create a social post for Instagram, it has no direction and it'll just give you garbage back. The biggest if you don't like the first answer, it's important to train the AI and tell it like, hey, here are the tools. Like, this is what I didn't like. This is where it's off. This is a correction I make. And I'll show you that in a minute. The last and the most important piece, this is the new tool. And I would give it akin to when Microsoft had that little paperclip guy, I think his name was Clippy, when he popped up and he started to train people on word processing and how to use spell check. And now that's kind of everywhere. That's where we're at with the invent ChatGPT. While ChatGPT is one of many tools, AI and its ability to prompt is infiltrating everything we use. It is integrated into all of Microsoft's products now. The entire G Suite has it now, not in the professional, but in the personal version. We are seeing it across Amazon. So it is here to stay. And these are foundational tools. And what we've taught you in today's presentation, these are some of the practices that you can deploy across any platform, not just ChatGPT, to get better outputs from AI in general. Now, just some things to consider and where these limitations exist. It is artificial intelligence. It is still only as good as the quality of the information that you give it. If you have a flawed data source or if you have not given it enough information, what you get back will be limited. It is still developing its access to the internet. They have updated ChatGPT's access. X's platform is instantaneous, but its database is limited to X. So it's important to validate their data source and how relevant the information is. I will tell you, in what we have built with some of our client GPTs and our own GPTs, which is a custom build, you can set and give it a specific data source, and I will show you an example of that in a minute. You are still the expert. You know more about your clients, you know more about your business, and it's important to recognize that. This is not necessarily an excuse to be lazy, but think of chat or any type of AI as a mechanism that drives efficiency, but you still have to drive the bus. It may seem like half the planet's using it. We honestly try to break it. We have had ChatGPT go down in some critical moments, so it's important. Do not be 100% reliant on any platform. You still should have some redundancies because we have seen it go down or we have seen it start to flaw. So it's important to have some redundancies, not be contingent on one platform. Some of our favorite tools to date, this list continues to change, but these are typically the three we find the most useful. One of the ironies that I've seen, it's been really cool from an entrepreneurial perspective to see so many new AI companies explode and show up on different platforms, but we're now at the point where we're seeing a lot of consolidation. A lot of the major tools in Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI, and even Adobe have killed a lot of the third-party tools. So a lot of your big tech companies are going to kind of take over what you see. So for example, even Otter.ai, which was a really amazing transcription platform, Zoom had launched their own automated summary thing inside of Zoom's native platform now, which summarizes meetings as good as Otter. So a lot of these third-party apps are going away. So if you are going to make decisions on tools, my advice to you would be pick the major ones, learn the core systems behind them. I will tell you, Adobe is unbelievable, and where they're headed with individual customized automations is pretty profound. So if you're already using Adobe, just dive into how to leverage some of their automation tools. They're even in Photoshop, their advanced fill is second to none. I'm going to leave this up for just a quick second if you want to get a copy of this, and then I'm going to switch over and I'm going to do some live stuff inside of ChatGPT and show you where and how to get the most out of it. And now I'm just going to take a quick look, see if there's any questions, and then I'm just going to flip back and show you how to expand on some of what we've done already. And I'll also show you some prompts. In that link that was on the screen, you'll also have access to some of the prompts that we use. So inside of this, one of the things that you'll notice, this we had asked afterwards to take that initial thing. We've asked to close. We've now said, hey, can you write a 1,000 word blog post? So we can create a complete campaign and series of information all with one instance of ChatGPT because the context is there. So we can continue to expand it. We now have a complete blog post that's SEO optimized, has the key takeaways and summary, which is strong. This is an SEO component here. It has all the data. Now we've said, as I'd mentioned, go to episode 6, and it's doing the same setup. It kept the format, which we had trained it on, gives the same advice, the same post. and it goes on beyond there. Now, I want to open this up to questions so we can see some live interaction. See it there. Are there any questions you guys have or things you want to see within chat, how we expand on the command stacking? Quite a group today. Anything on the data analytics side?
I've got a bunch of questions, but I don't know if we're going to save those for the very end. And if you want specifically,
We
as it
can go
relates
right into those now. Yep.
live. Okay.
Yep. I just want to give, if anyone wanted to see something while that window was open, a chance, but you can go ahead, Robert, and fire away with the questions.
All right. Well, that was like the fastest 30 minutes of my life, which I think is
Good.
compliment for that. Thank you. Yeah, please looking for questions in the Q&A, but I'll start us off. Whenever someone asks in these professional development situations, what's your number one tip, that kind of stuff, I kind of roll my eyes a little bit, but I might have a little bit of that for you. But I actually want to start with you personally before I jump into some specific questions about what you presented. So I think that a lot of people in the webinar today are probably pretty darn new to the AI, or at least the possibilities of AI and how they can use it with their daily professional lives. So can you just talk a little bit about how you personally got into AI? Like how many years have you been doing this, and what was your life before this? And why did you get into this specifically? Because I think there could be some good takeaways for maybe more of the group that aren't at the place where you're at.
Sure. So a long time ago, growing up, was a huge fan of golf, as you can tell by the flag behind me, and someone by the name of Arnold Palmer. He's a renowned golfer, but he's even a more renowned entrepreneur. And one of the things I realized that helped him be so successful was his understanding of marketing. And he was one of the first people to build an agency around influencers. So he had built a company called IMG, which still is the largest influencer company. Now, this was back in the 1950s. And he was the one who realized that you could convert attention into some type of monetization, or you could move an audience. So that was my early exposure. I studied what he did, and that set me on the path to realize I wanted to be one of the world's best marketers. And what led me into AI was a sequence of working with Google and TD Bank. We developed some products for Google, which are now in-market audiences, because we're trying to understand at the time, how do people buy? And the first project we worked on was mortgages. And that's where we came up with a customer loyalty framework, because at the time, everyone was just competing on a rate sale. Everybody was just trying to figure out, like, how do I get the cheapest mortgage? And what we were able to uncover was people actually had previous buying questions. They would ask things like, how much house can I afford? Or what are the different types of mortgages? And we started to sequence the customer journey. And this is almost 12 years ago now. And that led me down the path of really getting in-depth understanding of how do we improve attribution. So we did a project with Rogers Communications and Volkswagen, where we were able to understand if somebody searched something on AutoTrader, we knew that that particular person was looking for either an SUV or Volkswagen, and we were able to retarget them on their televisions based on that behavior. And ultimately, we could measure if they walked onto the lot and purchased a car using Google Maps. So I'd always been a little bit of a marketing tech nerd. So when AI started to come to the forefront, it was kind of that next frontier to realize, hey, this is where the ball's heading. And I needed to find a way to get ahead of it. Now, Giant Goat, we have been using AI for a little over 3 years. So we have been pushing it. Now, this is before ChatGPT was available. We were using some other automation tools to do transcripting, to help with copywriting for emails, blog posts. And and even just using some data automation to understand how to make better decisions in media buying. But over the last, I want to say 12 months or so, since chat has gone through multiple iterations, we've kind of doubled down and figured out how can we get the most out of the core tools and help share that information with our clients, with other people in the industry, because I think it's moving at a pace faster than most people can keep up with.
Sure. Thank you for that. There's a few questions in from Jen. So if you want to look actually, Doug, at the Q&A, I think it's probably easy for you to read those yourself versus me reading them to you. There's some very specific technical questions, and I think so. I'll maybe let you address those three right.
I'll go through those. And thank you, Jen. Those are all very good questions. First question is, does all of this happen in the same session? Can you return to the conversation? I'm going to read your second question because the two are related. Are you using ChatGPT 4, and does the version make a significant difference? Yes, we are using ChatGPT 4, and I would highly encourage everybody to invest in that. It's $10 a month, even if it is just for your own learning and development, understanding how to be an expert in prompting. It's worth it. It also enables you to save conversations. You remember the core of AI is it's a learning model, meaning that it's going to continue to build off of the previous knowledge. So understanding how to build that rich context and using the briefing prompt, now you can come back to it time and time again. And I've experimented this even with my own social media platforms. I've uploaded my book, my TED Talk, other interviews I've done. So it understands my tone. It understands pattern of speech. It understands my topics. I actually went as far as creating a Doug bot, which I'll happily pull up on the screen, which allows me to have a rich context of all the things I've done. So now you can it'll come back to it again and again and allow you to access old information, but it'll follow the similar frameworks, patterns. So yes, I do use saved sessions, and I believe those are only available or you'll get the most out of them in version GPT-4. You had another question. Could you show how you define the data set for ChatGPT to draw from? As an ag marketer that works with many clients, can I point to specific website or publication? That question really depends on how you engage. There are two ways that we do this. Number one is you can either work within the client-specific ChatGPT instance and build it as their first-party data. This is a recommendation we make for most clients is if you're going to invest a significant amount in developing content, that is data you should own, much like you would own your Facebook profiles, your Facebook ad accounts, etc. So client specific, they should be building it within their own platform. If it's more just simple freelance content, then I would structure them within individual chats. The third version, and this is the most advanced, is building custom GPTs. Now, this is something that takes a significant amount of work and development expertise, but that's where you can set the knowledge base. And I can show you real quick an example of one. So I'm going to open two windows here. So at Giant Goat, we have created two different ones. The first one was just an experiment. We created something called the Doug bot. So this is a consolidation of all of the different marketing frameworks that we have or use with clients. And it helps us create and follows the same processes we do when we bring somebody on board. So if I were to say, help me create a product launch for a new never done it next. Let's see what it does. Whoops. It even does spell correct because I said product launch. So you'll see here, it's using a specific launch formula that's really effective per products. It is telling me what marketing copy framework to use, and then the additional questions and considerations I have to use. So it knows, and we have programmed this, and this takes hours to build, but we have built custom things so that these tools just kind of help with the framework. But as you can tell, the more you have conversations, the better it trains this to go into this.
So
Okay.
on that note, Doug, so a lot of the I don't want to say complaints in a really with a capital C, maybe lowercase c, is that a lot of the data back from an AI is basic. And so can you speak a little bit about that? I mean, I think you just were in terms of how it is really working with the software to um, grow its knowledge with you and what you're looking for, and it can actually give things that are more valuable as you progress with the relationship. Can you speak to that for me?
A lot of that has to do with setting context. As we mentioned, like that briefing prompt at the beginning eliminates a lot of that junk people get. And the more you set the stage for what you're looking for, the outcomes, who you're speaking to, even providing past examples or transcripts helps build a knowledge base that produces higher quality outputs. It's very, very much a garbage in, garbage out. And most people are looking for kind of that, in my experience, kind of that quick turnaround. It's like, hey, help me produce a social post on soybean crops. Well, you'll get what you put in that question. However, if I was more specific with telling them what my product is, the specific farmers I'm in, the regions that I serve, the soil types that it grows best in, now it's going to write a much richer, more contextually relevant post or email or something else. So a lot of time it's just taking the 45 minutes and setting up the chat to produce quality content. And sometimes, listen, you'll get lucky. Like you might say, and it's funny. I play with it all the time because I believe it's going to be the forefront for the next 15 years. And I'll be honest, I said, I'm coaching my son's basketball team. They're 8 and 9-year-old boys. And I said, listen, I need some help developing a practice schedule for the next 10 weeks. Can you help me develop a plan? And you just go back and forth and refine the plan. I give it some examples from, hey, here's a Steph Curry video. I need to incorporate this for 9-year-olds. So a lot of it is having, number one, setting the context, but number two, having the patience and the conversation. Treat it like a brainstorming session you would have with somebody on your team or with your client and talk through the idea. Be like, yeah, you know what? That's off. That doesn't seem like a match. We need to go this direction.
Sure.
And it learns and it constantly builds on that foundation. So, it's just like we have some that we've been using it for 9 months, and we can say, hey, please go back to the campaign we did in July. We need to update it for this year with these 6 changes, and it can do that. So a lot of it has to do with treating this as a skill you're developing and understanding how to leverage the tool to get the most out of it. But more rarely would I blame the tool as much as I would the operator.
Sure. On the note of your specific example there, but going back to the last campaign to evolve it or refine it for this period. So I think maybe this has to do a little bit with where Jen was going to with what does the operator need to do to have the software to know that it has access to go back to that original insight. So is that what you're
Let's
talking about having that?
Yeah, let's just test it live. I don't know if this is going to work, so this could completely blow up, but let me let me just load up the example here in the chat simulation. I'm just waiting for it to load here. So we have here on your screen in just a second, this is the existing one, right? We have done the same thing. Okay, we said we're going to do this for winter. Okay, so we know we have this table here of ideas. We have a podcast set where it produced a series of episodes. So these here. So we have what, 7 in total. So now I'm going to say, now that it is spring, I need to create a new content series. Can you match the format and sequence, but update the content for something spring related? So now it knows I was happy with the format, and it's now going to reproduce the same thing, but updating something that's more relevant to the time I specified. So I can go through the same workflow process. And this is why it's important to understand, number one, the briefing prompt followed by command stacking. These two things in sequence are huge time savers. And because of its access to the internet, and it is accumulating knowledge from everything everybody else is integrating with the platform, it's usually pretty accurate. Like baby animals on the farm, probably right. Sustainable farming in the spring, relevant topic. So this is when you put in the context, it knows how to develop patterns. So if you know, hey, this format worked, I'm going to reproduce it. I might say, hey, I need to reproduce it, but I only need to do four episodes. So you can specify and give those specific things, and it will make it much easier. Does that answer the question, Jen? I know you were asking some of this, but we'll just stop sharing in the interest of time.
Yeah, I think it's a great segue actually for my next area that I want to talk to you about, and that is the confusion over where, in this case, ChatGPT is getting its insight or data from, and then ownership, copyrights, related issues around that. So, can you just talk about where these systems or these softwares are getting the data from that they're spitting back to you, and any ownership copyright concerns that you've worked through?
Yep. So number one, I'm not an attorney. We have an attorney and an insurance policy specifically for the use of this. So I encourage you, if you're an agency, a company, talk to your attorneys, have a policy and procedure in place, and have insurance for it. Number one. Number two, you need to read the fine print on the platforms that you're using. Different levels of subscription give you different rights for use of content. For example, in Midjourney, the free subscription, you do not have rights to claim it as your own. The paid subscription, you do. It is considered an arts platform, no different than what you would produce inside of Adobe, any Adobe product like Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. You can claim those as your own. You need to understand the fine print in the platform you're using and their specifications. When it comes to copywriting, I don't necessarily know that there's been a definitive piece. However, what I will tell you, anything that you produce and put out, you need to check for your facts. You need to edit it thoroughly. And in certain platforms, you do need to disclose this was produced with entirely or with the aid of AI. That little disclaimer never hurts. I think everyone's using it now. I don't think anyone really cares that you've used AI. It's kind of becoming the standard place. So I think disclosure and honesty is going to save a lot of headaches. But again, honestly, if you're going to do this regularly, I would consult with your attorney and develop just a process and procedure around how you do this.
Okay.
I would never use AI and claim it entirely as a work of my own. It's important if you're working with clients, let them know we use it. We actually help clients implement it so they know it's being used. However, I would not use it without disclosing it you're using it.
Okay. I have two things that I'm watching the clock, and I want to talk a little bit more about customer journey, but I also want to talk about the greatest client concerns that clients have had for you. So that's maybe a quicker one. So can we
Mhm.
talk a little bit about, and we were talking about this, I think, just a moment ago as it relates to the fine print, ownership disclaimer, that kind of thing. But what are some of the, from your last 3 years, I guess, plus of experience with this, some of the greatest concerns that clients have had, or yourself, of course?
It's not necessarily clients that brought this particular one up, but it's just a personal frustration of mine. Building a chat instance to me is first party data. You should be building it within the client's platform. You are teaching it on behalf of a client. They should have it built in their own instance so they have access to it prior to your, like after your working relationship. It's also leveraging and building on their own data. So that just goes back to first party data rights, which should belong with the entity itself. The second piece is having more of an abundance mindset. The more we can share about how to use and leverage AI, the better we all are, which is why we openly just showed how we built all that stuff. This thing is moving so fast and benefits from an open community. If we were aligned and kind of keep all the hacks behind closed doors, it's very difficult for people to progress. This thing's moving faster than any single individual entity or person can keep up with. So I'm a big believer in just sharing the knowledge around how AI is functioning, how we're using it, prompts that we use. I mean, there are so many open prompt libraries that you can go tap into to kind of accelerate what you do. So to me, this is here to stay, but I think it's something everybody should benefit from. In terms of client concerns, there has been a lot of issues around privacy. How is their data sitting? How's it being used? Who can truly access it? Where is it being stored, shared, et cetera? Especially when it gets to client data. It's probably most prevalent in the health sector or finance sectors, just protecting that data and abiding by laws and legislations that exist around it. And even some of them just don't want their, like their annual results. Like if we were analyzing client results, I don't know that we actually have a use case outside of e-commerce where we've put in sales data, um, just for, concerns of any data breaches or anything. But outside of that, we've seen very few concerns because it's here to stay. I mean, it is everywhere. It is embedded in everything now.
So Doug, how do you address that then when there is client-specific data that's being used within the process of using AI? How do you go around
Our
that?
our current policy is we only use anonymized data. We don't use any specific data.
Okay.
So before we even get it, it's been anonymized. So we have no idea. It's all generic numbers. Same thing. It's the same processing rules and obligations that Google and Facebook ad policies adhere to. So all data is anonymized. It's not public. So that way we don't get into any privacy breaches. Smaller e-commerce has been the only exception where they're comfortable with that and they sign a data waiver, but most of those are low dollar transactions. And we don't have any card data or personal data, appended to that.
Finally, for me, I want to talk a little bit, but I want you to talk more about the customer journey. And either I missed it or it was weaved into all the things you were talking about and it didn't necessarily dawn on me. But can you talk about customer journey as it relates to obviously AI and how that a marketer can use the tools to affect, direct, evolve, define customer journey?
Yep. So one of the things you saw briefly, and within the QR code that we put, and I can put it back up on the screen, there is a 45-minute training that goes way into depth about how to look at a customer journey based on the science of how we make decisions. Um, so we'll have that there. The main reason it's important to understand the different stages of the customer journey is there are specific copywriting frameworks that apply to where somebody is at a given time. Some of them are more designed to get attention and help educate somebody so that they can move down to the consideration. Whereas other copywriting frameworks like PASS, for example, like problem, agitate, solution, those are very specific conversion type things. Like you may do it as a purchase campaign email or part of an ad, you might use that copy. So it's important to understand your specific customer journey and then align the type of campaigns you're putting together to be specific. So if I were to flip back real quickly, let me just go back into the chat history here. And I were to show you the the launch framework that they gave, this here is telling you very specifically, we're going to use this copywriting framework because they know that they have to get your attention, they have to educate, and they have to get you to act. So in this here, they have pre-launch, launch sequence, open cards. So there's 4 steps. This is the framework that's going to align the best with that. So when we say, hey, can you create the pre-launch email or the pre-launch social ads, it knows how to correlate the type of copywriting framework with where somebody's at in the funnel. And that's, you will get the most out of AI if you can nail the correlation between where somebody's at in their buying cycle with the type of creative and the content you deliver to them. The next and the last piece, that's distribution and understanding how to use paid, owned, and earned to get it in front of them.
I feel that could be a multi-series discussion right there.
Yeah.
We're at the hour. I did want to ask one last question, and maybe I'll invite Megan back as a final thank you and wrap up here. But so what's the, so I'm going to ask the one thing. What's the one thing, Doug? What's the one thing that an agri marketer should do after learning in this webinar? What's the one thing that we can go to that's tangible to further on with our growth in professional development in AI?
Play with it. Get in the platforms, learn the skills of how to use it, how to apply it, how to write prompts that are effective. You just have to go, at this point, it's reps and sets. Just get in there and start using it.
Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome. Thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. I've played around with ChatGPT, ChatGPT a little bit, but I'm excited to use those prompts that you provided and do a little bit more with it. So thank you so much for your time and expertise. And in lieu of a speaker gift, CAMA will be making a donation to CABIF in your name. And so thank you again to our webinar series sponsors, CABIF and Top Crop Manager. And thank you to everyone for participating today and for supporting CAMA. And if you'd like to learn more about CAMA, go to our website at cama.org. Thank you, everyone.